All right, today we're diving right into a severe energy crisis that's unfolding in Cuba as we speak. And believe me, this situation is sending some serious shockwaves through the nation and the entire international community.
So, what's at the absolute heart of this crisis? Well, it's a problem that has, and I mean this quite literally, grounded Cuba's main connection to the outside world, its aviation industry.
Yep, you heard that right. In a move that's almost unheard of, Cuban aviation officials have announced a critical shortage of jet fuel. This is forcing airlines to completely change how they operate.
And look, this isn't just some rumor floating around. This is an official notice from the government sent out to pilots and airlines. For a specific window of time, 9 airports, including the major hub in Havana, simply can't provide any fuel. So what does this mean in practice? Well, long-haul flights are either being canceled altogether, like Air Canada has had to do, or they're scrambling to build in extra refueling stops in other countries. It's a logistical nightmare.
So this, of course, raises the big question. What on earth could trigger such a drastic shortage, and why is it all coming to a head right now?
To answer that, we really have to trace this whole thing back to its source. And it all seems to point to escalating international pressure, which has effectively put an even tighter squeeze on the island's economic blockade.
You know, a crisis like this doesn't just pop up overnight. It's really the end result of a very targeted series of actions by the Trump administration. First, they started putting pressure on Cuba's main oil suppliers, countries like Venezuela and Mexico. Then, the whole diplomatic tone got way more confrontational. And then came the real game changer, an executive order signed in late January. This order put some serious teeth into the policy, threatening tariffs on any nation that sold oil to Cuba. So step by step, they just systematically choked off the island's access to fuel.
And it's so important to remember, this political pressure isn't just some abstract issue you read about in the news. It has triggered a cascade of truly devastating consequences that are being felt by ordinary Cubans in almost every part of their daily lives.
This quote from a pilot really puts the whole thing into perspective. He says that for an island that is frankly used to constant crisis, an official announcement like this is extraordinary. That tells you everything you need to know. This isn't just another hardship. This is a crisis on a completely different level.
And the economic stakes here are just massive. Tourism for Cuba isn't a luxury. It's a $3 billion lifeline. So when flights get canceled and travel becomes this difficult, you're putting an entire industry that supports countless jobs in serious jeopardy.
But this crisis goes way beyond the airports. For many Cubans, the impact is hitting them right at home. We're talking about rolling power outages that can last up to 10 hours a day. I mean, can you imagine trying to live, work, or just get by under those conditions?
And out on the streets, the rationing is just as severe. Gas sales are now capped at a strict 20 liters per person. But here's the real kicker. In a huge shift, Cubans now have to pay for that fuel in US dollars, not their local currency. That just adds another crushing layer of economic hardship.
The ripple effects are just everywhere. The public bus system in Havana, it's ground to a halt. Banks have cut their operating hours. Major cultural events like the International Book Fair have been suspended. They're even having to restructure the national baseball season. The entire rhythm of society is being disrupted.
For many people on the island, this whole crisis is stirring up some pretty painful memories of a difficult past. It's highlighting a long history of economic strain.
This timeline really helps put it all in context. See, the economic pressure on Cuba isn't new. It started with U.S. sanctions way back in the 1960s. It got incredibly dire in the 1990s during what's known as the Special Period, right after the Soviet Union fell and all that aid disappeared. And now, here in the 2020s, this new extreme level of pressure has culminated in the fuel crisis we're seeing today. And this comparison is what's truly telling. When Cubans today talk about shortages, the benchmark they use is the Special Period, a time of just profound economic depression. The fact that today's crisis is drawing that same comparison, well, it just speaks volumes about how severe things have become.
So when you put it all together, the grounded planes, the power outages, these painful echoes of the past, what you get is an entire nation left in a state of deep uncertainty, just wondering what in the world comes next.
And that really leads us to the final, looming question. With daily life grinding to a halt and the economy under such immense strain, it all raises a really profound and urgent question about resilience. As Cuba confronts a crisis that feels so much like a return to its most difficult days, how long can its economy, and more importantly, its people, endure?